Hi, Jeremy Horn.
Yes.
This is Steve Jewin from MMA Mania. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having a little time to do an interview. I appreciate Mike setting it up and you being available. So my first question to get it right out of the way is, I'm sure you're all set to go for Tony Lopez on Saturday. How are you feeling right now?
I feel great.
All right. How's the camp been? How's training been going? How's everything going right now for you?
Just staying busy. Not a whole lot changes here, so.
Well, when you've had over 100 fights in your career, I suppose probably not a lot changes from one camp to the next.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it looks like it could be your 5th win in a row on Saturday if everything goes according to plan. Do you think it's going to be another first-round submission?
I don't really know. Tony's actually pretty tough. I'm planning on it. I'm always planning on it, but, he's a gamer, so could go into the second or third round.
Yeah, it could. Is the light heavyweight title on the line in this fight?
Yes.
Okay, so you are the Sugar Creek Showdown light heavyweight champion. Tell everybody a little bit about Sugar Creek Showdown for those who aren't aware of the series.
They're a show based out of just outside of Oklahoma City, and it's a great show. They treat fighters very well. It's a small show, but they actually have a lot of talented guys that pass through there. Jeremy Spoon has fought on it a couple of times. He's actually fighting on this one coming up as well. I mean, he's fought in Bellator. Josh Tyler, one of my fighters, also fought in Bellator, is fighting on it. They've had a handful of fighters that have come from other organizations to fight on this show, so it's definitely it's a show that doesn't get a whole lot of press and credit, but it's definitely a quality show that people should keep an eye on.
Well, speaking of your team, Elite Performance, how are things going for your fighters overall? I mean, just general assessment of where they're at right now.
We're doing good. The guys are always training hard and always making improvements, so chugging along.
How many guys do you feel like right now in camp are like sleepers that people don't know about that really should? Like the guys that are going to be big names in UFC, Bellator, or Sugar Creek, or wherever?
I don't know if there's any really sleepers out there. I mean, most of the guys are fairly well known. I mean, David Pudman is getting a lot more attention lately. The guys all depends on what circle you're in, but they're all pretty well known.
Sugar Creek will be another chance to see some of your fighters as they're on the card with you, but obviously you're going to be one of the featured bouts, so it's not a position you're unfamiliar with. You've been a headline fighter in a lot of promotions over the years. When you think back, I mean, how do you even begin to comprehend the fact that you've been doing this for 3 decades now?
I don't really look at it. I just keep chugging along and fighting because I love it, so I don't really think about how long it's been going on. Yeah, that's the thing, man. You look back, it's been a long, long time, but like I said, I just keep looking forward. I don't look back too often.
I understand, but if I could just get you to reflect for 1 second, if you can, do you pick out any fights when you've had over 100 fights and say, man, that was the signature fight of my career? Are you able to pick out one and pick it as your favorite?
Yeah, people ask me. I think my fight with Forrest in the IFC tournament was one of my better fights. It was a good night. Everything was kind of going well. I think if I had to pick just one, I think it'd probably be that one.
Mm-hmm. It's quite incredible. And how do you maintain your longevity after being in the sport since the 90s? How do you keep going out there and not breaking down?
I don't particularly fight with a very rough and reckless style, and so I get in and out of a lot of fights, win or lose, without taking too much damage. And I try to do the same thing in my training for the most part.
Yeah, that seems to be a problem for a lot of fighters these days, is they overtrain and get hurt before their fights. What do you say to fighters, especially in your own camp, when they're getting ready for a big fight, to keep them from overtraining and hurting themselves?
Well, the biggest thing is people think that training harder makes always for more success, when really if you're training smarter and focusing on doing things right instead of doing them hard, generally you can stay pretty safe.
So it's more about technique then, like refining your striking, improving your grappling, just getting overall better at the little things instead of going out there and just blowing through everything as hard as you can.
I think so, yeah.
Well, it's worked for you, so I think other fighters should probably take a page out of your notebook, because if they want to be around for this long, that's a key to success, is not overtrain. Yeah,
like I said, that's kind of always been my philosophy. I don't want to train super hard. I don't want to spar super hard. There's no reason to do that kind of thing. All you're going to do is get your body banged up and have to take you're eventually going to hit a wall where you have to take a couple of days off, or you've got to take a workout off. But if you temper those workouts and not go so hard, you can stay consistently training all the time.
Right. I agree. Now, you grew up in Omaha, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, coincidentally, that's where I live, and I've lived here for about 15 years now, so I gotta just ask the question that any Nebraskan would ask. Are you still following the Huskers?
I never did.
Oh, okay.
I mean, everybody has to when you live there. Obviously, you can't not know about the Cornhuskers, but I've never been a big football fan. I don't really follow any sports other than MMA. And a little bit of boxing, I guess. But yeah, I've never been a big football fan, even though it basically got shoved down my throat for the most part of my early life.
Yeah, you're right. You can't live here and not have it shoved down your throat. I learned that quickly once I moved here, was that it was Husker red everywhere I went.
Yep.
But did you always know then, I mean, since you weren't a football fan or into any other sports, did you always know, even from a young age, that you were going to be a fighter of some sort?
No, I didn't really, I still never really thought of myself, or nor do I now think of myself as a fighter. I mean, it's hard for me to sometimes to look at myself that way, but this is just something that I've always done. I've done it my whole life. I enjoy doing it, and it just so happens that I get to make money doing it. So I don't really look at myself as a fighter, as a career. I just do what I like to do.
That's fair. There must have been at least one dawning moment where you said, I'm pretty good at this and I like doing this and maybe I can also make some money at it. When did that moment occur to you?
It really, like I said, it really didn't. I mean, looking back, I can see that now, but at no point during that did I say or think that. I was just, when's my next fight? When do I go back to the gym and start training again?
When you've been so many places and had so much success over your career, you've been, UFC, King of the Cage, obviously Sugar Creek Showdown now. Do you ever think any of those places that you've been, you'd like to get back to again and have another fight there?
No, not really. I mean, Sugar Creek is a great show. Like I said, I love fighting for them. They bring my guys out pretty regularly. So, it's just a great promotion and a great time. But other than that, I mean, I just, I'll fight wherever somebody wants me to fight.
Besides Sugar Creek, you've also fought recently for Extreme Challenge and Elite and Cage Wars. And, it seems like you have at least one or two fights every year.
I try to, yeah.
Is that another recommendation you have for fighters as they age? Is, we've seen some fighters like Josh Koscheck just recently took 2 fights in about 4 weeks. And it seems like that's too much. Maybe like 1 or 2 fights a year as you age is probably a better way to go.
It all comes down to the individual. I mean, how much do you like to stay busy? How's your body holding up? I imagine Koscheck is in pretty bad shape. I mean, I know he spent his whole life wrestling, and I know wrestling can be very, very hard on your body. So, but if he's in good enough shape to stay healthy and then take those fights because he's in good shape, then do it,
Same time, like you said, he's probably in pretty rough shape because wrestling does take a toll, and he took a toll in those 2 fights, getting TKO'd and getting choked out. So I worry about him, and I worry sometimes that fighters don't know when to stop. How will you know when it's time for you to stop?
No fighter knows when to stop. You never want to stop. You want to fight. If you're winning fights, there's obviously no reason to stop. If you're losing fights, you want one more good fight and then you'll stop. But then you have that good fight and you're like, well, I'm winning fights, so why should I stop?
Right.
So very rarely is it can you look at it and say, okay, it's time for me to stop.
Do you have to then take advice from teammates or training partners, or is it like the owner of a promotion will just come to you and put a hand on your shoulder and say, maybe this is your day? Is there anybody you can listen to that'll tell you that as a fighter?
Everybody's different. I don't think so, but, maybe other people are different.
Going back to Chuck Liddell, it pretty much came to Dana White having to put his hand on Chuck's shoulder and saying, hey, Chuck, maybe it's time. I don't think Chuck wanted to quit either.
Sure.
I remember that UFC pay-per-view, and I was kind of surprised by how that fight ended.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it still goes down as a TKO, but no, I mean, I just, I didn't see myself winning that fight the way it was going, and I didn't see myself being able to change that. So the only thing that would have happened was for me to, just stay in there and prove that I can take a beating. And that's not, that's never been a smart plan, and that's not really how I operate anyway, so.
Right. No, obviously stopping then was the correct choice, but sometimes fighters just don't know that. I'd say a case in point would be Anthony Pettis in that 5th round. Realistically had no chance against Rafael dos Anjos, but he wasn't quitting. He was still hoping he could land that one big punch in the 5th round at some point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people are, you know, I mean, everybody makes their own decisions, but yeah, you know, it's up to each one of them when they're in the fight, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, coming back to Sugar Creek Showdown, it's going to be a big fight on Saturday night, and I assume there's multiple ways for people to see it, not just being there in Oklahoma, but it's going to be available on the internet as well.
Yeah, they stream all their fights on Go Fight Live, so you can find them there.
Pretty reasonable price, right? It's like only $10-15 to watch a big card of fights.
Yeah, I think it's like $10. Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody will want to check that out on GoFightLive.tv. It'll be a great card on Saturday night. Any other fights besides yours that you think, you know, are fights people should be looking out for on that show?
Well, the whole card will be fun, I'm sure. Glenn is the promoter. He always puts together a great card. Josh Tyler, one of my fighters, is defending his 145-pound title on that as well against Jeremy Spoon. That'll be a good fight. David Putvin, the other guy I mentioned, is also fighting on that card. He is fighting Jeremy Spoon's brother, Jared. So those will both be good fights. But other than that, I actually am not familiar with the rest of the card, but Glenn always puts on a great show, so I'll expect some good fights.
I see a couple other fights besides the ones you mentioned, Brad Failer and Lance Friedenstein, and Brenda Gonzalez and Anita Rodriguez. So looks like a stacked lineup, and you'll be in the main event defending your SCS light heavyweight title against Tony Kryptonite Lopez. So we look forward to a great fight, and Jeremy, I really appreciate the time today. Thank you for doing the interview.
No problem. My pleasure.
All right.